Welcome to another episode of Soul Sanctuary Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Snowden. Today's episode is all about making magic in your life. And I talked to my dear friend, Katie, who I've known for about 10 years now. Katie has a vast array of knowledge in various subjects. And over time, Katie has brought on new things that she's learned and studied and got bachelor's degrees in to come down to this one sole purpose. Duty in life is to bring healing to other people. Katie uses her knowledge in nervous system regulation, emotional regulation, body talk, nutrition, and even equestrian healing to help her clients achieve the goals they're looking for with their health journey and other things that they're trying to achieve. Today, Katie and I talk all about intuition. We talk about how to talk to your body and listen to your body. We learn about the safety of our emotions, why they're important, why we should honor them, why ignoring them is not great to do. And then stay tuned to the very end when Katie does an awesome healing regression meditation with me to help unblock some things that I was feeling very small and stale and stagnant in my life. Enjoy this episode. Okay, welcome to my beautiful friend, Katie. I'm super excited to have you on. We have known each other. Are you ready for this? We've known each other for 11 years. That is, time has flown by. And I have always, I know I've talked about this in other events and virtual workshops I've done, but I've always felt very connected to you since the day we first met. And always looked up to you, and everything that you kind of did, I was like, gosh, if Katie can do that, then I can totally do that. So a lot of the things that I do now, I would like to give credit to you because you inspired me to live a path that was less traveled, tap into parts of myself that I definitely was not listening to, and utilize that to shape this business that I have now. So thank you, Katie.
Well, thank you. My God, it's an honor.
And so I just start off by asking everyone the same question, because this podcast is called the Soul Sanctuary Podcast. I am curious, what ignites your soul?
Oh my God, so many things. So many things. First of all, what I'm doing right now for a living ignites my soul 100%. I find that, like, after I'm done a session with a client and they leave, or I close down the Zoom meeting, I am perpetually like looking up and just being grateful for being able to do what I do in the way that I do it, with, you know, the help of the powers that be running through. So that totally ignites my soul. Horses ignite my soul. So I've recently started riding again. Well, I guess not super recently, but within the last year, horses have entered my life again, which was a pretty big thing. Water ignites my soul. Nature ignites my soul. Passion and pleasure ignite my soul, for God's sakes. I feel like, you know, this is something that we miss out on in health so much, because we're always like, don't eat gluten and do this and do that. And then we're like, where the fuck is the pleasure in life? Like, I want some pleasure. So pleasures of the flesh ignite my soul. And sometimes that is like touch and love. And sometimes that is like almond croissants.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
And the reason I ask that question too is because sometimes some of my listeners are really vague on what ignites their soul. And the answers I've got have such a beautiful spectrum of various things. And your answers are just like just elements of every day that we can tap into that do that. And it doesn't have to be this big gargantuan thing. It can just be little things like this connection, a connection with a friend or someone in your life too, right?
Yeah. It's funny. When I left my ex-husband, I had no idea what set my soul on fire at all. Like, I couldn't even remember what set my soul on fire when I did know. That's how far gone it was.
Yeah.
And Ruby and I Ruby's my daughter for anybody who's listening, but we moved into a house in the country, and I had this neighbor who was in his 80s, and he came riding by on his riding lawnmower one day to introduce himself. So he rode up on his riding lawnmower and he turned up his hearing aid, because he had it down so that the lawnmower wasn't too loud for him. So he turned up his hearing aid and he was like, "So what's your story? How'd you end up here?" And I was like, "Well, I left my husband," and kind of gave him the Coles Notes version. And he was like, "What do you like to do?" And I started bawling. I was like, "I don't know. I have no idea." And he said, "It sounds to me like you've been taking care of everybody else for a really long time." And I was like, "That's pretty accurate." And he was like, "Okay, nice to meet you." And then he left. And I was like, "What the hell?" So then he came back a couple weeks later, but in between, I had decided that what this man presented to me was really invaluable. Like, he had presented to me the fact that I didn't know myself at all. And so in between then, I had gone to this farm tour where they were foraging and they were teaching us about plants and stuff like that. And it was lovely. And I had a great time. And I felt really on fire and passionate about nature. And so when he came by a couple weeks later, I was like, "Hey, I found something. I did something." And he was so like happy for me. And then I was like, "I want to know more." And it made me really sad that I didn't know more. And so I said to him, I want to learn more about what sets my soul on fire, what I like to do. And I said, "I really want," and I was crying when I said it. I was like, "I just want to chop wood." I don't know why, but that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to chop wood. And he looked at me and he said, "There's 12 acres of bush back there. Take your truck and have a good time." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And so every single weekend for the next, I don't know how many months, Ruby and I would wake up on Saturday morning. I'd make myself a coffee and her hot chocolate. We'd walk back there and we would pull trees out of the bush that were already fallen, and I would chop them up. So we'd pull them out of the bush and walk them back to our house, which was like a farmer's field away, and chop them up. And that literally was my first step.
That's amazing. I love that story. First of all, something that came through as you were saying that to me was angels are not just entities that we can't see. There are angels that are on this earth that come into our lives, even sometimes for a split second, to remind us of who we are. And I felt like that beautiful old man, despite how old he was, and he had lived here for many, many, many years, maybe, he came into your life at that moment to remind you.
Yeah, 100%. Yes.
Oh, that even gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
I love it. And connecting back to nature was just what you needed. You just needed to ground yourself, kind of rewind a little bit back in time to when we actually, all of us, had to do that. Chop wood, carry water, foundational things that we had to do in order to survive. And you were doing that. In order to survive that breakup of a relationship, you had to rewind a bit.
Yeah, you're totally right. And I had to release anger.
Yes.
I was angry at my ex. I was angry that this had happened. This was not what I wanted. Even though I was the one that had chosen to leave. I was really upset.
Yes.
I needed to release that anger. Like, when I was chopping wood, there was a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears that went into it. Literally.
That's awesome. It's I'm really glad that you found a constructive way, though, because so many of us, I talked a bit about this the other day on a live that I did. We've gotten into habits and programming that we do not non-constructive things to grieve, to move through uncomfortable emotions, to feel frustrated or defeated or whatever those kind of stale, not great emotions are, we do things that are not great for us. Drinking, smoking, drugs, shopping, social media scrolling, watching television, sex even is an avenue that I know that's kind of too
Yeah.
much information, but it was one that I used in my
Yeah.
past, right?
No, totally.
Just to feel something. Dopamine hits that get you high in the moment, but when the moment has passed, almost immediately you feel like crap again. And so I'm glad that you were like, no, I need something like constructive, physical, something that's going to be mine and mine alone and not distract me with the presence of another person, even right with the social media scrolling and sex. Those are
Yeah.
very like looking for outer comfort.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny because even healthy things like running, like I know people who run to feel better, and their argument is, well, running is healthy, like it's exercise, it's good for me. Well, not if the reason that you're running is to run away from your problems. Like,
Yeah.
use shopping, sex, social media scrolling, all of those things to run away from our problems.
Yes.
But I think, certainly this is not the way for everybody, but it is the way for me, and it has been the way for many of my clients too, is to stop running and actually just face the emotion. Right. So with that chopping wood, I had no idea at the time that what I was doing was actually turning to face the anger. I didn't know that. All I knew was my soul wanted to chop wood. I was like, this is what I want. But in retrospect, I know that I literally turned around to face the demon that was chasing me
That's beautiful.
instead
Yeah.
of running away from it and trying to make myself feel better, which I could have done by being like, oh, it's Saturday morning. We need to go out and meet our friends and we need to be social, or we need to go and do this to
Mhm.
make me feel good. No, I was like, I am going to hunker down in this anger, and we're going to grapple, and I'm going to
Yeah.
win.
That's amazing. Yeah. Because the other thing, and what I teach my clients too, is if you're ignoring those emotions, if you're trying to bypass them without even noticing or harnessing them and accepting them, then they have nowhere else to go but settle in your body. Right. And I think you teach the same thing. Like they settle as trauma responses, they settle as headaches, backaches, cancer. Like it just perpetuates because it'll start off with a little whisper of this headache going on, what's going on? And then you keep ignoring it, keep ignoring the emotion that was attached to it and the thought that came before it to turn it into an emotion. And it just takes off.
Right.
And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, I put my back out. Why did I do that? What happened? I don't understand. I was driving and all of a sudden my back went out. How have you been feeling for the past year?
Right.
2,
I have
3,
a
10?
Absolutely. Yeah, I have a really interesting story about that actually, because so now in the place that I'm in at my life, I'm very well versed at kind of figuring out those symptoms. So when they happen
Yes.
to me or when they happen to clients, like I'm pretty good at it. At 10 years ago, 12 years ago, actually probably right before we met, I was out west. I was living in BC, and I was good, but I wasn't like as honed as I am now. So something happened. The way that it all happened doesn't really matter, except to know that I made a decision to make a big change in my life from the wrong place. I made it from a very ego-led place instead of a soul-led place. And those never go well in my experience. So I ended up out west from this ego place and thought that, I had all my shit together and everything was just going to be fantastic. And life handed me like the biggest shit sandwich I've ever gotten. And so I was working in this job that I couldn't stand. I wasn't being treated well by my boss. Um, Everything was pretty much a mess. So I didn't do what I did with the wood. I didn't go into it. Instead, I tried to make it better. I was like, well, I should be more social. I should make more friends. I should do this. So, anyways, I started running after work with a group of women, lovely women. One of them was the VP of the company. We ended up becoming friends, but there was a group of us that ran together. And I should preface this to say, like, I hate running. I know you can only see this much of me, but I'm like short Ukrainian farming stock. I am not a runner. Okay. Like I was meant to like deal with animals and wheat, not run around things and look pretty, because that's not me. But I was like, well, you know what? Running's healthy and socializing's healthy. So I'm gonna go do this with these people. So I started running and I hurt my knee. I didn't actually like do anything. It just started hurting. And I remember thinking exactly what you said, like, this is a whisper. What's going on? But I kind of didn't exactly know how to interpret the message. And there was a lot of pressure and a lot of confusion and a lot of other things that went into it, as they always do. So I kind of just ignored it and hoped it would go away. And it didn't. And so I remember it getting so bad that I thought to myself, I should go to the doctor, which for me is big, not because I don't like doctors. I do like doctors. I just tend to be able to fix most things on my own. So for me to think I need to go to someone else to fix it is big. So I was like, I should go to the doctor. And then I thought, wait, I'm going to try one more thing. And I remember being in the shower. I had body wash on one of those poofs and I was washing my body. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to ask my body a question. And when I got down to it was my right knee. When I got down to my knee, I said to my body, okay, I know you're trying to tell me something about moving forward in life, but I can't figure out if you're trying to tell me that I should stay still and just wait this out, like wait out the storm at my job, or whether it's telling me to move the fuck on.
Yeah.
I said, if you're telling me, if you're trying to bring my attention to the fact that this is not the right career for me and I should move on, can you please lessen the pain just a little bit so that I know I'm heading in the right direction? And I woke up the next morning, didn't actually even think about what I had done in the shower, stepped out of my bed and realized that there was considerably less pain in my knee. It wasn't gone, it was considerably less. And so on that day, I decided to trust my body and I gave my notice to my job. And my knee pain went away and it has never come back since.
Of course. Of
Right?
course. Right? Wow. That, I hope everyone had pen, paper listening to that, because that is huge. We don't do that. We don't even know that we can do that. Ask our body. It's prompting us, but ask it what it needs and give it some sort of instruction to guide us. I am a big believer in signs. I ask a lot from the universe for a sign. I don't think I've ever actually sat and asked my body, my being, that question. And so that's like the first thing I'm going to do when we get off this.
Isn't it so cool? Like, because I really believe that our body and our soul, they work in conjunction with one another very closely.
Yeah.
And so if our soul is not happy with what we're doing, it will tell us through our body. But that's not what we're taught to think. We're taught to think that when there's symptoms that our body's revolting against us and, this is what bodies do as we age, or, this is just what happens in life, where that's not always the case.
No. Usually, and same, I teach my clients that. Funny that I teach my clients that, but I forget to ask my own body.
We all do that, don't worry.
Listen to what I say, not do as I do, I guess. But anyway, I need to start practicing what I preach. But it's just so interesting. I say this a lot to my clients. Like, we've been programmed to think that we are a body and we have thoughts and we have emotions and we then have a soul, and that all of those pieces are so separate. And why? That is the most ridiculous thing. We are a human being, and in our being, we house all of those things. You are a person that thinks and feels and moves and can connect to a higher source, whatever you want to call that. And to think that it's so very separate is a really old programming stance that who knows why it formed or where it came from, but it no longer serves us as humanity. And we really need to tap into the fact that we have the tools within us, always.
Yeah.
And the first thing we always do is rush to a doctor because we think that that's going to help. And yes, I'm, as somebody that's also a medical miracle in the sense that I've been here because of many advancements in medicine. I also still know the value of what I am able to do. I know that my body has responded well to treatments because of things that I have been able to do, not just the treatment alone, right? Absolutely. And it's important for us to know that medicine is a reactive form of healing us, not a proactive
Mhm.
form of healing us. And the proactive part comes from within.
Totally. I can't remember if I told you this the last time we chatted or not, but the reason that I got into doing what I do was over 2 decades ago. I say I made myself really sick. I clearly didn't purposefully make myself really
Yes.
sick.
Yeah.
I got sick because of the way that I was living. And I had a whole bunch of doctors tell me, you're always going to live like this. Here's some prednisone. Have a nice day.
Mhm.
I had this really pivotal moment where I was hopping off an examination table at a doctor's office, and it felt to me like as I hopped off, I got suspended somewhere between hopping off and when I landed on the ground. So for me, it was like time stood still. And when it did, I had a knowing. Now, this was not a thought, it was not a feeling. It was a knowing, like a whole body knowing that if my body created this, my body could fix it. I just had to figure out how. And I had never heard anything like that in my life. So I don't know where the hell it came from, but it was like in me. And so that's what I did. I spent the next year doing a whole bunch of independent research, talking to a lot of people. I didn't actually go see any practitioners in that year. I just did everything on my own. I'm a little stubborn, so that was probably part of what went into it. But by the next year, I had no symptoms, and they've never come back. And that was so powerful to me because I was like, we have so much potential that we're not taught.
Mhm.
We're not even encouraged to find out, right? We're very much encouraged to go with the status quo, which sometimes can be the right thing, but sometimes it's the very wrong thing. So figuring out, at what point is it best for you to go to the doctor and get the medicine? And at what point is it best for you to do something a different way? Being able to have the fluidity of thought, that ability to actually assess every situation for that which it is, not everything, just that one particular situation. At this point in time, do I need to go to the doctor? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, we go. If the answer is no, then you do it a different way. But
Mhm.
accessing that is so important because then you start really like living from your soul, getting really healthy, getting really joyous. Your body starts changing, your physiology changes, your mindset changes. It all kind of comes after that, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's your opinion is sort of a collective opinion of, well, myself included, but of many people that have come before us with the same ideas and even scientific backing of the same information. I'm reading a really incredible book. I highly recommend it. It's called Psycho-Cybernetics. I have it right here. And it's all about the improving your self-image. So when you think of yourself as a failure, as someone who's sick all the time, much like I did in my life for many, many years, um, someone who is poor and can never make money or is unlovable or all the things that we end up telling ourselves, you're going to only get that evidence in your life all the time because you're sending off that vibrational energy and people can read your energy. Like when you're in the room with someone who is a negative Nelly, you feel that. You're like, God, I hate being around so and so. They bring me down. So when you have become that person, all the things in your life to support what you think of yourself are going to come from there, right? And so that's kind of circling back to the health part. If you had just gave in and you were like, well, this is my body now, and I'm just sick now, or this happens when you get old now, and whatever, it will absolutely support that, right? But because you chose to be like, no, there's something else here. You heard that intuitive thought come through to you, and you knew, kind of like how we know how to be moms without any sort of
Yeah.
information,
Uh,
right? You just know. It's being able to listen and be like, no, there's something else. And there's been many moments in my life where I'm like, everyone's saying this, and there's something about it. And I don't follow maybe the mainstream thoughts on some things, and I may not voice my opinion about it, but I just, no, not mine to have. You can have that, but I'm going to do something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
so important. We've all got our own journey, we're all incredibly unique in so many ways, in soul ways and body ways and mind ways and in all sorts of ways. And following that journey is arguably, I think, the most important thing to do in life. I think that is why we're here.
Yes, I so agree. So, speaking of purpose and why we're here, there's been many beautiful things that you've done in your life from a career standpoint. And I think it's safe for me to say this, but I think what you're doing now is absolutely it. Like you took the time over the last probably decade to sift and sort and discover and discard. And now you're at a point where you're like, yep, this is what I'm meant to do. And I just want you to elaborate on like what it is you're doing, how you arrived there, all that juicy stuff.
So what am I doing? This is always such an interesting question because people will ask me, oh, so what do you do? And I'm always like, well, the easiest answer that I've come up with so far is that I'm a bit like a witch doctor. People come to me with their problems, whether that's in their body, their mind, their relationships, whatever it is, and we fix them. So that's kind of it. But I think I help people make the magic in their own lives is really what I do. And that's probably a better way to put it. So I
Yeah.
don't actually have a title because, like you said, I've been doing lots of things over the last, like even 2 decades, because I became a nutritionist 20 years ago.
Right.
That's kind of where it started. So actually, that's probably a good place to start the answer is after I had made myself better after I got sick, I decided, wow, like if I had this much potential to do this for myself, I really want to help other people do it. And so I became a nutritionist, and then I went on and I did herbalism, and then I did holistic lifestyle coaching. And then we met when I was doing gym. I was managing a gym. I've also done marketing and sales for health food companies. I've done conflict management and mediation training. I decided to go back to university, well, go back to school to go to university when I was a single parent, because I'm also a high school dropout. And I always had this crazy pipe dream that I wanted to get a degree for whatever reason. So I went back to school. I got a bachelor's with honors. I made the dean's list as a single parent. I got a master's. I've done so many things. Like I've trained as a sound healer, a death doula, disease and prevention coaching. Like I've done a gazillion and one things. And I always kind of ask myself, like, why am I doing this? How is that going to do anything? But I always just loved it. I loved learning about people. I loved learning about the human body, about the human spirit, about healing. So I kind of just immersed myself in it. And what it's culminated into now is a full-time coaching practice where I teach people, well, a lot of different things, but the crux of it all, when you get down to it, is how to listen, how to connect and listen to their own soul. And that's what we do. So then we practice making decisions from that place, and they can be decisions about little things like what should I wear today, or what should I eat today, or they can be really big things like, do I stay or leave this partner, or do I stay or leave this career, or I know that I want to leave this career, but I have no idea what I want to do. And so by tapping into that soul, we get to engage in that journey, and from there, then people feel like they're in the flow, right? Then life flows. There's still some challenges, but they're not roadblocks. They're growth prompting challenges, and we have a really great time doing it. So I would say 100% you're completely bang on. This is definitely what I'm meant to do. And it's interesting because even in the midst of doing it, it's still evolving. So,
Yes.
I've had some interactions with clients where it just didn't seem to make a lot of sense for them to come to my office. And it also didn't feel like the right thing. And this is the interesting thing about tuning into your soul. It also didn't feel like the right thing to see them over Zoom. And so I was like, well, they own horses. What if I just go to the barn? And they were like, yeah. So I started doing sessions at the barn with them with their horses. And that's now turned into me taking another course to do equine assisted personal development. So I'm going to be adding horses to my practice. So it all just kind of like keeps going. But these are not things that I could have ever, I could not have predicted them. despite being intuitive and despite having knowings about things that I want to experience in life, I would have never predicted this. And that's sometimes what happens when you live from that soul-led place and you leave room for the magic, that the universe hands you these beautiful things that you could have never even dreamed up yourself. And I think that that is like the thing that I love the most about this is the magic.
I love that quote you just said. That's like, you should frame that. Like leaving room for the magic. I think that that's the one element that so many of us are still searching for. We're
Yeah.
searching, and like I know from personal experience after our life, by the way, I think that's why we're friends, because our lives are very parallel. Also lived in Alberta for like you lived in BC, but I lived in Alberta for many years and had a relationship and came home pregnant. Like it was a whole thing. And from that time, which had a lot of beauty in it, but so much pain in it, to now discovering who I am and loving what I do and serving how I want to serve, all that time was spent searching for that magic, right? And so many of us search outwardly, right? Like we're constantly thinking, oh, it'll be this supplement, or oh, it'll be this workout, or oh, it'll be this partner, or oh, it'll be this job that's going to light me up. And it is not that at all. It is so far removed from that it's not even close. The magic is here, and listening to your soul and listening to your intuitive hits that you get in life, and follow them.
Yeah.
Even if they don't seem like logical in your life. It's so important to be like, oh gosh, my soul really wants out of this relationship, right? And that in itself, waking that up is really tough. I have been there before. But to listen and follow it opens so many doors to rediscovering who you are.
100% yes. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting because what you said about us always searching for it outside, you're completely right. We all search for it outside. And the other thing is that we are creatures of, like, we like certainty, like we really want to be certain that if we make this decision, it's the right thing. And like you said, oftentimes the intuitive or the soul longing is not logical. Okay. It doesn't often make a whole lot of sense. But that doesn't mean it's not right. And a lot of people don't listen to it because it's not logical and because there's no guarantee. We always want to know, if I make this choice, what's it going to look like over there, or what's going to happen? And that's why we can't find the magic. Because if we make decisions based on, well, if I make this decision, then this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and then this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, where in there is there room for magic? Nowhere. Also, it usually fucks itself all up because there's way too many variables, and this never happens, right? Like this to this to this to this to this, there's too many variables in there. There's so many other people involved in our lives that can make choices that really derail us, our plans. So there's too many variables. So making a congruent decision from your soul, from that intuitive place of knowing, your soul's longings, whether that's something crazy, like I've always dreamed of going to, Africa and riding elephants across the, like whatever, who cares what it is. But if that's something that is inside you that wants to be experienced in this lifetime, that's definitely a feeling worth entertaining, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah. In my course, we talk a lot about that, and a lot about the higher faculties, intuition being one of them, imagination obviously being another, and how we, in all our beautiful humanness, live our lives from our five senses a lot of the time, right? If we can't see, smell, hear, taste, and touch it, then we're not going to follow it. And when you live your life from your five senses, as 99% of us do, you live small, you live in a comfort zone, you're always going to be longing, always going to be wondering, always going to feel off the path. where if you live, like you said, from that intuitive zone, even from that imagination state of you've had this like vision of you riding elephants in Africa and that pull to that feeling that it gives you when it lights you up when you think about it. If you live from those zones, that that is where the magic will happen. That is where that longing of self dissipates in a way that you feel comfortable again. And not in, being comfortable and being in a comfort zone are two different things. Your comfort zone is comfortable because it's keeping you small, but it makes you feel edgy.
Absolutely.
Where if
Very
you're
important.
comfortable and lit up about life and excited about life and at peace with your life, despite maybe life being busy or chaotic or beautiful, whatever that may bring, that is a totally different zone.
Yeah. I always tell my clients that there's like two different kinds of discomfort, right? Because we're always taught like, if it makes you uncomfortable, well, then you shouldn't do it. Like
Mhm.
don't do that thing. But there's two different kinds of discomfort. So there's a kind of discomfort that is when you get a gut feeling like this is not right for me. So, if I was seeing a client for the first time and that client walked into my office naked, I would be suitably uncomfortable. I would be like, this needs to change. This is not okay with me. That is not a discomfort I should lean into. And I should be like, oh, actually, I should just be okay with this because they're comfortable like that. And so I should be okay with it because I don't want to judge or anything like that. No, that's the kind of discomfort that says this is not okay with me. Then there's the kind of discomfort that is scary as fuck and really growth prompting. And that's the kind of discomfort that we actually should lean into. That's the kind that says you're going to be someone different on the other side of this. That this is scary. I've never done this. I don't know if I can do it, but something in me is like, yes.
Yeah. And when you jump into that, we always call it the messy middle, right? When you jump into that and be like, okay, I'm going all in, much like you and I have done, leaving a marriage, starting a business, that physical business that you had with the store dissipated beautifully because it was kind of merging into this one, but still discomfort in that. When you're in that, it feels really uncomfortable because you are merging away from that self-image that you had of yourself. You're removing yourself from the girl that played small or the girl that always fails or every relationship I have always ends and blah 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 blah, all the stories that we've told ourselves. You're leaving that, you're closing a door to that, and that's who you think you are. And so when you're moving into somebody else, it's like it's super uncomfortable. Even in the healing process of our lives, if we're healing our bodies, healing your mind, it's not this, oh, I know what's wrong. And okay, here are the tools that I can do to make myself feel better. And look how I've healed. The healing journey is not a lateral timeline. It's a lot of like two stepping up and back and forth and like dancing around in circles with certain emotions and then releasing them. And it, I think so many of us get caught up in that, like, okay, I'm going to do this. And then when it starts to go wrong, quote unquote, wrong, or you feel quote unquote like you're a failure, that's when we stop. We're like, nope, not working. This isn't working. It didn't work out for me. That's because you didn't have the persistence within yourself to keep going. It's like when you chip away at a wall and there's gold on the other side, right? And you're chipping away, chipping away, chipping away. It's exhausting. You're hungry, you're tired. You give up just to find out that you were 2 feet from striking gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in the hard, I always, when things are getting hard, I've learned to lean in and go, oh, yeah, thank you. Oh my gosh, it's getting hard. That means it's going to get really good. Because
Yeah.
it will. Yeah. The hardness is like that storm happening. And then the calm, beautiful, sunny rainbow comes after. And you're like, I've arrived at my goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think also within that, it's important to kind of, again, like I'm a big fan of the check-in. So when things do get hard, to check in, because I know from personal experience in my life, there have been times when things got really hard and pushing through them was the exact wrong thing to do for at that point in time, right?
Yes.
But I'm like really good at pushing through things. So this is a big life lesson for me, is when to actually back off and be like, this is actually not the right path. This is not where the gold is behind the wall, even though I thought it was.
Yes.
It's actually over here. Right. So for me, a big life lesson has been kind of about figuring out how to determine which of those things are growth prompting hard, let's call them.
Yes.
They're really good. Those ones are so good. Those ones are where the gold is. Or which ones are like the roadblocks. And then I'm like, but watch me, because I'm so stubborn, I can chip away at this, and then I can get through the next 10 that you give me, and I'll still make it to where I want to go. I'll just be exhausted and sick and tired, and I'll hate everything.
Yes.
Right?
That's so smart. You're so right about that. Like it goes back to what you said about actually asking your body.
Right.
It's okay to actually ask your body, and what I said, ask your soul.
Yes.
Like I always ask for a sign. So this feels like it's not working out. I keep trying and it's not working out. Give me a sign of whatever. I usually pick an animal. So my latest was like, give me a sign of a deer. If this is actually what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm not, I'm not there yet. I just need to keep going because I'm feeling really uncomfortable. And sure enough, within an hour, I saw a deer and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Because even here's the other thing, when you ask your body and you ask your soul or ask for a sign, you'll get the answer right away. Instantly. I found that my intuition and my soul instantly is like, well, you already know this, but sure, I'll give you an answer anyway. You know the answer is yes. You got to keep going. Or the answer is no, you don't need to do that. Or your answer is to leave that situation. Like, why did you need to ask me? But okay, here we are.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, Melissa, I got you.
Yeah. Even though, but it's funny because even now that I do Reiki on people, it's opened a whole new level of being able to tap into spirit that I had never experienced, by able to be kind of like a medium for them in between what's going on in the healing session and what spirit is saying to me. So now having that modality for myself, I've been able to be like, okay, I can do it for myself too. Listen, tap in and ask. And then the messages always come through really quite quickly, which is, I think it's just like the best blessing.
Okay, so here's like I feel like this is like a personal question, but like, still have trouble following it sometimes when you get the answer? Because I still, when I get certain answers, I'm like, there's some stuff that always makes you feel a little like, this is a big one,
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I get a lot of intuitive hits, and then I can organize it in my mind, or all my, like, I call it my humanness, like write it out, get a plan, and then not take action. That is one of my biggest programming things that I'm working on. My paradigm I'm working on is take the action. It's talked to you. You've heard it over and over and over again.
Right.
Will you just?
It might be interesting to like kind of root around and see if there's any blocks in there, because a lot of the time when we try to fix stuff with our mind, and we can't, like if we hit that like standstill, it's because there's something else in there that's just blocking it, something else that needs to be processed or released or acknowledged or whatever. And then it like opens up that energy to flow.
Yeah, that's so smart. So then how would you recommend someone does that? Like if you were coaching me right now and I was like, there's a block, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
I know there's a block.
Yeah.
But I can't decipher what exactly it is. By the way, this is true story. What would you say to someone if they asked you that? What would you recommend?
Well, I mean, I would recommend for sure doing some work around like thinking back to the past and kind of opening to see if there was ever a time in your life where either procrastination served you really well or whether you actually took a chance and took action and it went horribly wrong.
Yeah.
Sometimes what happens with procrastination is that something happened to us in our lives where we actually did the thing and it went really shittily. And so that's where the energy block is like, shit, that thing that I took action on, it didn't work. And so now there's something in us that says, don't take the action because it might not work.
Oh my God. So many things are coming up.
See, it works.
I gotta edit this out. No, I'm just kidding. It's for sure. So I've done similar action steps. And the two things that come up the most for me are my health, obviously, being diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at 8 weeks old. I would have heard 1,001 things about not being healthy, right? From that moment on to, 2 years ago when I really honed in on becoming a different version of myself and using the tools that I have within me, spirit, mind, feeling, all of the things. Up until that point, sick girl mentality was something that was so real for me. And I'm sure it is for many of my listeners because many of my listeners struggle with a lot of health issues. So that is one that procrastination definitely served me because I felt like it was a container that would keep me safe, that would keep me healthy. Because if I played small or let things slide, ignored them, then I wouldn't have to get stressed or what have you, and then I wouldn't get sick, right? So that's for sure that one. And then another one would be probably my experience with Alberta and how that all went down and taking the chance on love at the time and then it not working out, very much not working out, and then a whole slew of different things happening in life after that moment would be that it's kind of like, oh, that was a really pivotal point in my youth that I failed miserably, and I feel like I failed a million people at that point, not just him or myself, and became somebody very different in that time frame, and then just kind of like pulled away from who I was, right? That destruction and that moment made me totally have to re-find myself, much like your marriage
Yeah.
ending, right? Because you get a vision of what a life is with a person and you're set on it, especially when you marry them. Mine was leading to that. And then it falls apart and that just like rips you wide open. You're like, well, I don't know who the heck I am anymore. Yeah. So those
Yeah.
would be like the ones that jumped out at me.
Those are two really powerful ones. And I would say when you were talking, what came through to me, like from you and from that energy, was that perhaps it's not so much procrastination. Perhaps we've labeled it as procrastination, but perhaps it has something to do with actually embracing the fact that you're now that you have stable health, that you have the capacity to actually do things and make them happen, because there was a time in your life when planning for something was probably impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Planning and doing something could have very well always been, you know, the word usurped comes to mind. Like just it all goes to shit because you get sick and you're in the hospital and you can't do it. So then what's the point in doing it anyway? Right? So now that you're at this place in your life where you have stable, good health, some part of you is still functioning from this older place where it wasn't really safe to plan and do things because you might end up in the hospital or you might end up sick. So it just needs a little bit of an upgrade, like a computer upgrade where the system programming is don't do the thing because it might not work out anyway. But if we upgrade the program to know now the body is actually working really well and I can actually do the thing and it's actually going to work out. I'm actually going to be able to carry through to follow through, to make the thing happen that I'm planning, or to the way that I'm planning it, that you have this stability. It might be more about embracing the health,
Yes.
embracing your healthy body, and finding trust in the fact that you have a healthy body, and
So,
less about the procrastination.
yeah, that is bang on, Katie.
Is it?
She, she's good, people.
Yay!
And so, as in coach mode, if I said to you, I understand what you're saying, what would be a tool that you would give a client to say, try this daily to kind of unblock that block? Try embracing healthy version of Melissa and accepting the downfall of what happened. I mean, I have accepted the downfall of what happened in Alberta, but I do realize that that's also kind of part of the risk taking element, but it's mostly the health. Like it'd be like 98% health.
Yeah.
Right. So what would you say to somebody that was like, I understand what you're saying. I totally get it. I want to do it. What's a modality or a tool that you would offer them to just
So
work through?
I actually probably wouldn't offer them any tools, because in for me, that's very much using our mind. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, this
Yeah.
is not a mind block with you. Your mind is on track. Your mind is
Yeah.
your mind is going in the right direction. So I personally as a coach wouldn't need to do, or wouldn't feel like I need to do anything with your mind at all. It
Right.
would be that energetic aspect of it. And what I think probably would fit well for you or someone who's in your position, um, would be probably to actually, like the thing that's coming, because this it all happens just for you. It's not like I don't
Yeah.
recommend.
Yeah. It's not everyone else. Yeah.
So the thing that's coming is, for you to get yourself into a meditative state, which I know you're good at,
Mm-hmm.
and really go back and connect with the Melissa that you were when you were sick and when you were in Alberta, and let her know, where you are now. And just,
Yeah. Good one.
I know that you were scared to commit to things because you were always getting sick, but now look at where we are.
Yeah.
And to go back to that Melissa who made the decision in Alberta to take chances that didn't work out the way she wanted them to, and to forgive her.
Yes.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
her and you are different versions of the same person.
Yes.
The you that you are today is not the same you that you were when you made those choices to go to Alberta. So although on the surface it kind of looks the same, like, oh, I took a chance and it didn't work out, energetically it's not the same. Energetically, the Melissa that took those chances in Alberta, and where life kind of handed you something that you didn't really want, those choices were coming from a different place. They were coming from um, not to say you were immature, but a less mature
Yeah.
place,
Mhm.
a little more wild and free. Uh,
Yeah.
the kind of Melissa who was like, I'm not going to let anything hold me back. I want to experience life. And it was coming from a completely different energetic place, where the place that you're in now, or energetically, when you take chances to do something, is so different. It feels grounded, solid, on track mentally, responsible, and really connected. So I don't that like I would recommend going in and kind of doing some energetic work around that, because you're not in the same space that you were. And I think that might just shift the energy a little bit.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome. That is bang on. I'm gonna do that, and then I'll report back to you. Be like, I knew
Okay.
that
Yeah.
block is gone. Because it's funny, when you say it's not a mental block. I mean, I always talk about having two minds: our conscious mind, which is where we think and we give meaning to everything, and we kind of process. That's our processing mind, and then our subconscious mind is our feeling mind, and has already settled with beliefs and our programming, and it's all in there, right? So, but that's also our heart mind and our body mind. And so I know in my mind, like my conscious mind is like, we are meant for huge things, huge things. And I feel it, I see it, I can visualize it, but there's this block and I have it and I feel it in my body. It's right here and straight through my back of my heart is blocking it. Like,
Okay. So do you want to do a little exercise quick?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, let's do it.
So I'm going to close my eyes. If you're comfortable, close your eyes too.
Okay.
And let's just take a deep breath and settle into our body for a second. And I'd like you to land your consciousness on that block. So you pointed to your chest and straight through to your back.
Mhm.
Does it have shape, size, color? Does it look like anything? Does it feel like anything?
So feeling wise, it's tight, it's heavy. If I gave it like a temperature, I would say it's hot, warm, not quite hot, warm. Color is like gray, black. Yeah.
Okay.
There's no real
And,
shape. It's just kind of like, you remember the Windows 98 version of the screensaver? It's like that.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you keep your attention and your consciousness on that place, does it have a message for you? Does it have something that it wants to say? Does it have something it wants to show you? Does it have something it wants you to acknowledge?
So the first words that came up were let go.
And does it come up with let go of what? Is there anything in particular?
Yeah, it's let go of like that part of myself, let go of that old version, sick version, failed version, release her. It's like tethered. So the part in my back is almost like I'm tethered to it still. That's what it feels like right now. And so that part of me, she's kind of like standing behind me, holding this tether, keeping me from flying, basically. And so my heart part is saying, we need to let go of that, cut that tie, cut that tether, allow ourselves to fly, because once we do, like, that's when the magic's gonna happen.
Okay. So it's funny because the image that I got in my head while you were talking was of a balloon and it was tied to that back part. So I
Yeah,
wonder if if you go just a little bit further in, can you get a visual of that version of you standing behind you?
sure. Let me just breathe for a second. Ooh, yeah. So she is, it's almost like it's twofold of the two things. So I'm standing in my old apartment in Alberta. My relationship has ended. I'm sick, but I'm trying to ignore it. I'm sitting and I'm crying on the floor, and I'm feeling very lost and very confused and also very sick with my body. And I just want to feel myself again. And it's sunny outside, but that doesn't make me feel good. I want to feel something other than what I'm feeling. I've got this blue t-shirt on, and it looks like I might have pajama pants on. And I just keep crying.
What would happen to that feeling and that picture if the Melissa that you are today could walk up to that Melissa, offer her your hand, and tell her you've got her, that everything's going to
Mm.
be okay, that you're going to make the right choices, that you're going to learn and grow?
She looks up and she stands up and she wipes her tears. And there's just this like calm feeling coming over her.
And if you ask her, to come with you through your body, from your back to your front, to that heart space, would she come with you?
Yeah, she would give anything to not feel the way she's feeling.
Yeah. So let's see if we can walk her to the heart space.
Okay. I've opened my arms and I'm just bringing her in. I'm holding her close.
And is she feeling better?
She's feeling better. She's actually kind of like merging into me right now.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And so as she merges with you, does that change that gray screensaver-like feeling that you had?
It's pink and white. And it's warm, but it's a different type of warm. It's like a calming bathtub floating in a heated pool type feeling.
Love it. And so do you feel like you and her have merged?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take a deep breath and send it all the love and oxygen and breath right into that space that you just changed. And then we can open our eyes and come back to this space.
Push hands. Do you want to hear something so crazy? I think you do. So after the demise of that relationship, I went home for Christmas, and I'm actually kind of shocked that I didn't see this moment, but it doesn't matter. I went home for Christmas, and I remember trying to sleep in my like childhood room, and I was obviously crying and tossing and turning, and I fell asleep, and I said, I don't know, what am I gonna do now? And a little while later, I woke up, and I heard this voice, and I sensed. Actually, I was wearing this. I sensed this.
Wow.
And I said now to myself, then I said, you're going to teach yoga. And I remember saying out loud in bed, I don't even know how to, like, I like yoga, but I don't even know how to teach yoga. What are you talking about? And all I said was, trust me, teach yoga. And so for the next few years, I just let that simmer. And then I came back to it when I had my son. And that's how this whole journey has started. I started teaching yoga. And I firmly believe that at one point in time, I did exactly this exercise. This was the moment. Funny that I didn't go back to that moment, but it doesn't matter. Like this was it. This was the moment. It was wild.
Yeah.
Cool.
I have a funny little feeling that your procrastination might not be the same as it was, but definitely let me know.
I will. Oh my gosh, so good. I'm so excited to put this episode out.
Oh, good. I'm so glad. I have had a great time.
That's good.
Ah.
So, Katie, where can people find you if they're looking for what you do and just want to follow you or get information on you? Where can people find you?
So I have a website. It is www.katie-kay.ca. And then you can find all my social media there. And don't judge me on my website because I'm better at helping people fix their lives than I am with websites. It's not bad, but it's not like great either. So go check it out and let me know what you think.
Awesome. Well, I'm so grateful that you could do this today. And I thank you for being here. Thank you for the magic of this whole episode. People are going to just find so much value in it. I know that for sure.
So glad.
And I appreciate it.
And thank you also for having me, and just for everything that you're doing for community, your community and your people, and also just for being open, open to that little, connection and exercise and seeing how that works for you. I definitely will be eager to hear if anything shifts.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm excited.
Good.
Watch out, world.
Yeah. Oh, watch out, world. Here comes Melissa. Exactly.
Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure.